Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning, you roll over, you check your phone, and your bank account says $1 billion. Not a million, a billion, with a B. And then a second notification pops up, and your stomach drops. It says you have 24 hours to spend every single dollar. Miss the deadline, and you lose all of it, including your memory of ever being rich. So let me ask you something. Could you actually do it? Because I promise you, 99% of people would fail this challenge in the most embarrassing way possible. And the reason why is going to teach you more about money than 4 years of business school ever could. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand something about wealth that the rich already know and they really, really don't want you to figure out. Okay, so let's actually do the math, because this is where it gets terrifying. $1 billion in 24 hours. That means to spend it all, you need to burn through roughly $1,600,000 every single hour. Every hour. That's about $690,000 per minute. $11,500 every second. So while you've been watching this video, you would have already needed to spend more than most people earn in a year. Let that sink in. The clock is the real villain here. It's not the money, it's the time. Now here's the first thing most people get completely wrong. The second they imagine this scenario, their brain goes straight to the fun stuff. A Lamborghini, a mansion, a private jet, designer clothes. And look, I get it, that's the fantasy. But here's what most people don't realize, that strategy fails almost immediately. Because a Lamborghini is what, 300-400 grand? Even if you bought 10 of them, that's $4 million. You just used 4 million out of 1,000 million, and you've already wasted an hour test driving cars. You are so far behind it's not even funny. This is the first trap, and it's the same trap that destroys real lottery winners in real life. They think small. They think in thousands, when they need to think in millions. So let me show you how someone who actually understands money would attack this. The clock starts at 8 a.m. First move, you don't go shopping. You go to the most expensive thing on planet Earth that one person can legally buy. Real estate. Not a house, a building. You call a commercial real estate broker, and you buy a skyscraper. A trophy office tower in Manhattan or Hong Kong can run you $800 million, $1 billion on its own. But here's the catch nobody tells you, and this is the part that's genuinely fascinating. You can't actually close a real estate deal in 24 hours. The paperwork, the title transfer, the escrow, it takes weeks. So even with infinite money, the system itself fights you. Time isn't just your enemy. The entire financial world is built to move slowly, and you are trying to move at light speed. When you're forced to spend money this fast, money stops feeling real. And that is the scariest part of this entire challenge. Think about it. When you spend $20 on lunch, you feel it a little. When you spend $200 on groceries, you feel it more. That feeling, that little pinch, is what keeps normal humans from going broke. It's a survival instinct, but when you're spending $40 million an hour, that instinct completely shuts off. Your brain literally cannot process the numbers. And this is the secret the ultra-wealthy live inside every single day. Past a certain point, money becomes abstract. It becomes a number on a screen with no emotional weight. And once money stops feeling real, you make insane decisions. Which, by the way, is exactly why so many rich people lose everything. Not because they're dumb, but because they lost the pinch. Now let me hit you with something that's going to reframe this whole video. Because here's a question almost nobody asks. Why is it so hard to spend $1 billion in a day? And the answer reveals the single most important truth about wealth that I want you to take away from this. It's hard because real wealth was never designed to be spent. It was designed to grow. $1 billion in cash is actually a problem. It's lazy money. It's losing value to inflation every second it sits there. The rich don't hold cash. They hold assets. Things that produce more money while they sleep. And the fact that you're being forced to spend it, to consume it, to destroy it in 24 hours is the most unwealthy thing you could possibly do. You're being asked to think like a poor person with a big number, instead of a rich person with a small one. So let's keep the clock running, because it's now noon and the pressure is unreal. You've got maybe 700 million left and 20 hours on the clock, but the deals are getting harder to close. So here's where the smart player makes the genius move. You give it away. And no, not because you're a saint. Because charity is the fastest legal way to move massive amounts of money, and it clears instantly. You can donate $200 million to a foundation with a single transfer. But here's the curiosity gap most people miss. Would that even count as spending it? If you donate it, did you spend it, or did you just relocate it? The rules of this challenge suddenly matter enormously, and this is the kind of detail that separates the people who win from the people who lose everything, including their memory. And speaking of losing your memory, let's talk about that, because it's the part that makes this whole scenario genuinely haunting. Most what would you do with $1 billion fantasies are just fun. But this one has teeth. If you fail, you don't just go back to broke. You forget you were ever rich. You forget this even happened. And here's the psychological gut punch that's actually how most people already live with money. They get a windfall, a tax refund, a bonus, an inheritance. And 6 months later, it's gone, and they can barely remember where it went. They had their $1 billion moment, just smaller, and they failed the exact same way. The money vanished, and so did the memory of the opportunity. That's not a fantasy. That's Tuesday for most people. So let me give you the actual real-world value here, because I promised you this would be worth your time. The reason you'd fail this challenge is the same reason most people struggle with money in real life, and it comes down to 3 things. Number 1, you don't think in systems, you think in objects. You see money and you see stuff to buy, instead of seeing money as a tool that moves and grows. Number 2, you've never trained your brain to handle big numbers, so when real opportunity shows up, you freeze, you hesitate, and the clock runs out. And number 3, this is the big one: you treat money as something to spend instead of something to deploy. Spending makes money disappear. Deploying makes money multiply. And almost everything about how we're raised teaches us to spend. Now here's the part where I flip the entire video on its head. Because you might be thinking, cool story, but I don't have $1 billion and I never will, so why does any of this matter? Here's why. Everything you just learned applies even harder when you have less. When you're broke, every single dollar has to be deployed perfectly. The person with $1 billion can afford to waste $4 million on Lamborghinis and still be fine. You can't. So the skills that win this impossible challenge: thinking and systems, moving money instead of spending it, putting cash into things that grow those skills, matter 1,000 times more for the average person than they do for the billionaire. The billionaire can survive being financially dumb. You cannot. That's the part nobody tells you. So let's talk about what deploying actually looks like in the real world, with real numbers you can actually use. Let's say you don't have $1 billion. Let's say you have $1,000. Most people spend it. It's gone. But if you deploy that $1,000 into something that grows at even 8% a year, which is roughly what the stock market has averaged historically, in 30 years, that 1,000 becomes about 10,000 without you doing anything. You touched it once. It worked for 3 decades. Now imagine you do that every month. A few $100s a month, deployed instead of spent, becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. That is the exact same principle as the $1 billion challenge, just played in slow motion. The challenge forces you to spend fast. Real wealth rewards you for deploying slow. Same money, opposite direction. And here's the twist that ties it all together, because I want you to really feel this. The person who could actually win the 24-hour challenged the person who could calmly burn $1 billion in a day without panicking is the exact same person who would never need to. Because the mindset it takes to move $1 billion without flinching is the same mindset that builds one in the first place. The calm, the systems thinking, the refusal to get emotional about numbers. The challenge isn't really testing whether you can spend $1 billion. It's testing whether you think like someone who deserves one. And most people, the second that money hit their account, would let the emotion take over, and they'd lose. Not because of the money, because of the mind behind it. So let me bring it home. If you woke up tomorrow with $1 billion in 24 hours, you now know the real game. It was never about the supercars or the mansions or the gold. It was about whether you could stop seeing money as something to consume and start seeing it as something to command. And the beautiful part, the part I really want you to walk away with, is that you don't need $1 billion to start practicing that mindset. You can start with the next paycheck, the next $100, the next decision between spending and deploying. Because the deadline in the story is fake. But the deadline in your real life, the one where the years quietly tick by while your money sits still losing value, that one is very, very real. And nobody's going to send you a notification when the clock runs out. So here's my honest challenge to you. Before you spend your next chunk of money, ask one question. Am I spending this or am I deploying it? That single question, asked over and over for the rest of your life, is worth more than the $1 billion in this entire video. If this made you see money even a little differently, you're going to want to stick around because the next video breaks down exactly where regular people are quietly deploying small amounts of money and turning it into real wealth, step by step. That's the part that actually changes your life. I'll see you there. And subscribe to Gothic Finance for more videos.